I think we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence today.
Oh, this is going to be a very interesting conversation, Rich. And what's interesting is sometimes people have it or you don't.
Yeah, and
So,
if you're a leader or you manage people, you have to have it.
right,
I
right.
I deal with a lot of my clients on this. I teach this. I teach this at a
Yeah.
workshop. So
And this is one of the biggest factors I bump into when I begin working with a new client. This is right in there. So it'll be interesting to talk about the different elements of it. So
yeah,
fantastic.
the whole idea is there's EQ, which is emotional intelligence. Then there's IQ, which is what you know. And a lot of people focus more on IQ. So
Yeah. And
you got to focus on EQ too.
yeah. And, there's a lot of studies that show that, high EQ leaders outperform those who just have the technical skills. So, it's all about managing those relationships, handling the stress, and making, better decisions for sure, right? But how do you feel EQ has impacted your success or your failures? This is interesting, right?
Yeah, I as a coach, I work with a lot of leaders, and I usually find if I had to bucket more CIOs and CTOs and CFOs have the IQ, they have the knowledge, the technical skills, but
Gotcha.
they always need help with their EQ, the emotional intelligence. They need the empathy, the people skills, the interpersonal skills to work with people. And
Mhm.
that's what we mainly work on. So that's a huge area of my coaching.
Yeah. And I think that what I see is in the meetings that we have with clients, there are just certain people who excel at this. We have an account director that is unbelievably intuitive and has that ability to read the room, understand what's happening, take care of everybody's needs. And it's fantastic to see in when you see a leader able to handle this type of thing.
Yeah, and it's this isn't something I when I do workshops on this, I go, it's not something you're born with. Just
Yeah,
like IQ, technical skills, EQ is a learned behavior. It's learned
yeah,
how to do it. So for people, I'm not really good at it. Well, you can get better at it. So
right, right.
today we're going to be taking you through four areas of EQ that have to do with small businesses. The first one is we're going to explain what it is and go a little bit deeper. The second, we're going to focus a little more on how EQ helps you in leading your people. The third area, one I think you're going to love, is how EQ helps you with sales and clients.
Hmm.
And then finally, the most important, how EQ helps you with stress and being resilient. So,
So excellent. I'm going to dive right in. The first one is really just understanding emotional intelligence. It's really three things. It's pretty easy to understand. What you have to imagine is you're a small business. How do you care about this? EQ is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions while influencing the feelings of others. So, obviously, this comes up in every interaction with employees, with customers, and partners. And it really requires emotional awareness. So, it's something, as Rich was saying, learned behavior. Fantastically, every day you can improve on this. Um, how does the self-awareness influence decision making in the leadership? Oh my gosh, like all the time. Recognizing your biases, stress triggers, emotional reactions. It helps you just lead more clearly. You're think of yourself as a leader who might lack this self-awareness. They often have such impulsive decisions and struggle to meet trust. You've been in that situation before, right, Rich, where you just cannot believe what a person might do, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Oh,
trust is huge with EQ. Yeah.
yeah. And can EQ be developed or can you be born with it? You know what? I go back and forth with Rich on this. I believe that you are born with a certain skill set, like you have a certain amount of it. Just as in IQ, you're smart. You know, you're able to learn quickly. You're able to do it quickly. I believe that you're what's in it, just like any other muscle, you just have to work it. You've got to learn more. You got to learn about mindfulness, feedback, and practice. So I don't know. I feel that you're born with some of it, and it's that ability to train yourself to be better.
Yeah, EQ, I hope we've explained EQ. If you want to learn a little bit more, there's Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a great book. It has assessments in there to help you
Mhm.
not only see where you are with EQ, but how to become better. So let's dive into the second area, emotional intelligence in leadership and working with your people. It really comes down to three things. This whole podcast is about three things. Um, there are common leadership mistakes that stem from having a low EQ or emotional intelligence. Um, like BJ talked about, it's reacting emotionally instead of responding strategically. Um, we do that when we're tired. We do that when we're frustrated. We do that when we're lost. But EQ helps you respond strategically. Second is like failing to read the team morale and
Yes.
pushing them too hard, or oppositely, not enough. So EQ helps you read the team morale more effectively and you push them just the right amount. And then finally, it's an inability to handle conflict productively, leading to disengaged employees. You're always going to have conflict when you deal
Yeah.
with people. Emotional intelligence helps you deal with it more effectively. So, how do emotionally intelligent leaders handle conflict differently? Well, number one, they listen first and they seek to understand before reacting. That's the stepping back and asking questions and listening. Second, they separate the issue from the emotion and it allows a more rational resolution. Okay. So you're really defining what's the problem. Let's get rid of the emotion here and look at what the real problem is. And then finally, emotional intelligence allows you to provide feedback in a way that builds people up rather than tearing them down. When you respond reactively, you tear people down. Emotional
Right.
intelligence or EQ helps you provide feedback that builds people up. And then finally, what's the impact of EQ on team morale, on more importantly, retention and the overall company culture? Well, teams with high EQ leaders experience better engagement, collaboration, and job satisfaction. It's been proven. And I've seen it for the last 15, 20 years in coaching. Employees feel valued, they feel heard, and the best part is they're motivated to contribute more to the team when you use EQ. And then
Mhm.
finally, you have lower turnover rates. People don't leave companies, they leave bad bosses. And when you're a good boss, when you're an EQ boss, they stick around.
Yeah. And you know the difference. You know that difference. It's that person who just feels they badger you, they're micromanagers, they're in your face, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they're a different person. So it's awesome when you have somebody who has a high EQ. Our producer, Rich Scalzo, very high EQ. He knows how to manage both me and Rich all the time. I'm going to take you into number three, which is the role of EQ in sales and client relationships. That's my role at my company. And I feel that emotional intelligence really helps to close deals and also build long term client relationships. How do you use it? Well, it's understanding clients' emotions helps it really helps to tailor your approach and your messaging. So all those initial meetings that you have an ability to kind of understand them and understand how you're going to be working with them. And what is fantastic is clients, potential clients, they buy on emotion and they justify it with logic. So if you can imagine EQ, IQ working together, EQ allows you to connect on an emotional level first, and then they will follow that up with IQ, which is fantastic. Number two, let me explain a couple of the ways that clients' emotions, um, you can read them and then you can adjust your approach in real time. Really watching people, and this was something Rich has stressed so many times to us as a group, it's pay attention to people's body language, their tone, their word choice, really see how they're kind of navigating through the meeting. The best thing you can do is kind of mirror their energy. If they're reserved, don't overwhelm them. Don't get so excited and that type of thing. But if they are excited and they are enthusiastic about what you're working on, match that, because then the connection is so much stronger for sure. The best thing you can do is ask questions to clarify their concern. Instead of assuming you know all their pain points, there might be things that are really bothering them, and you need to be in there and listen, which is one of the first key points we made, right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, when you're working with your team, you need to ask questions and understand. It's the same with clients. Too many people, when they're selling, sell, sell, sell. And it's like, no, 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 understand what the client's problem is. And that's how EQ can help you.
Yeah, and this goes with a relationship that you might have a relationship with a demanding client, and you need to turn that into a loyal one. So yes, at first they might come over demanding. I find sometimes clients when they first meet with us are kinetic. They've just got so many things that they got to work on, and they're all upset, handling them and what are their objections with empathy, and instead of being defensive, really builds trust. All of a sudden you're going to see these people just want to be heard. They want to be validated. They want all their concerns to be validated, and just turn them into long-term clients by listening and really mirroring what their thoughts are, and the fact that there are solutions, you know, and that gets them so exciting. A really high EQ salesperson focuses on the relationships, not just the transactions. There's really just two ways to look at it that way.
Yeah. So far we've taught you what EQ is. We've taught you how to use EQ with your team and how to sell with EQ. Now, the most important part, we're going to talk about managing stress and resilience with EQ.
Yeah.
Okay. Because as a small business owner, you have to navigate high pressure situations all the time because it's all on you. It's all
Right.
on you. You're the business owner. It's tough. And you need to recognize when you're reacting out of stress versus making a clear-headed decision. And EQ can help you do that.
Mhm.
Understand, am I being stressful right now? Or do I need to step back and think about my options? So, using emotional regulation techniques like deep breathing or taking a
Mm.
moment to step back is important. Now, this sounds very life coachy, take a deep breath and stuff, but sometimes you have to do that. You have to separate yourself from the situation to look at it from the outside because once
Mhm.
you're in it, it's very hard to differentiate. And communicating effectively under pressure, whether it's an employee or a customer, or a vendor, you need to
Mhm.
stay calm and inspires confidence in your team. They see how you're reacting to this problem, this pressure, and they will mirror your behavior. What are some signs that you or possibly your employees might be emotionally overwhelmed? You'll see, and I just got a phone with a client talking
Yeah.
about this, increased irritability in one of their people, uh,
Mhm.
or they're disengaged or they're burnt out. You'll see it. You'll see it immediately. People just aren't acting like they normally do. They might be avoiding difficult conversations instead of addressing issues. They just let it get
Mhm.
worse and worse and worse.
Right.
Or sudden drops in productivity or motivation. You see that. So, how do successful entrepreneurs use EQ, emotional intelligence, to bounce back? Well, number one, don't take the failure personally. Setbacks are learning experiences. I always say business or work is solving problems. So you're always going to have problems. So look at each problem as a learning experience, as a challenge. The second way successful entrepreneurs use EQ is they practice self compassion. Appreciate yourself,
Gosh, yeah.
appreciate where you've brought your business. You know, I tell people most businesses go out of business within the first year or two. BJ, how long have you been in business?
Going on 20 years.
Okay.
Yep.
When was the last time you patted yourself on the back and said, you know what? Damn, 20 years.
Whoa.
Most
Holy cow.
so how many businesses did you and I see in BNI? People
Oh,
come and go.
I know. And a lot of it, I have to say, is they don't have the right balance of
Yeah.
EQ and IQ.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of they're resting in the negative.
Yeah.
They rest in the negative, and they don't seek that support from a mentor or a peer or a team. You know,
Yeah.
BNI was all about helping each other,
Yeah.
and they would be like a little silo or a, standing way over here. And it was always so noticeable. And you and I would go, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, it was funny. There were people in BNI that would talk about, oh, life is great, business is wonderful. There are times where I would, because I go, they're lying. If you run a business, you have good times of the year and bad times of the year. I would
Right.
stand up in a BNI meeting. Sometimes I go, it's July. I need clients. You know, I'm having a terrible month. I need help here. And I actually asked for support from mentors and peers, my people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And being that honest about it, what you get is people asking you the best questions and going,
yeah,
"Oh, Rich, you're fantastic. You're doing such a great job." I know they're out there. And that encouragement that you don't get when you're an owner, but that encouragement from your peers is so fantastic. And you just can't beat it, right, Rich?
absolutely. Well, we always end with action steps. So I'm going to
Yes.
give you 4 action steps to boost your EQ for success in business. So the first one we're going to do is we want you to practice active listening. Okay. Not active speaking, active listening. So next time you're conversing, focus 100% on the person. Okay.
Ooh.
Listen, pause before responding, and reflect the emotions to them. In fact, paraphrase back what they said to you so you understand it fully.
And this one also is quite hard. Name your emotions. Start labeling what you're feeling throughout the day. This actually is an incredibly insightful way for you. The more you recognize your emotions, the better you are at managing them. So this does take a lot of self-awareness for sure.
Yeah. Number three is seek feedback and self reflect. Okay. It's not all you. Ask trusted employees, clients, mentors for honest feedback. How am I doing? How are we doing? Can we do anything better on handling tough situations? Okay. Identify patterns and work on weak spots. You know what the weak spots are, the weak times, the weak people, the weak actions, the weak products.
Mhm.
Identify those patterns to help you seek feedback and self reflect.
Yeah. And the fourth thing is pause before reacting. When you're faced with a challenging situation, just take a deep breath before responding. President Kennedy always used to acknowledge the question. He would say, "That's a very good question. Let me think about that." It reminds me a lot about Bubba. Well, when he did that, it gave him enough time to think it through before responding. And he always got back to responding, which was a very interesting technique. The book that Rich mentioned absolutely kind of covers this component for sure. Isn't that right, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm writing a book right now. I'm almost done, actually.
Oh, so
And
psyched.
there's a chapter in it where I talk about Tom Cruise. If you've ever saw an interview,
Uh-huh.
when people talk about Tom Cruise, when he talks to people, he gives you 100% of his focus. They go,
Yeah.
I've never met anybody like Tom Cruise, where he's like emotionally invested in you. Everybody else is you're in a bubble with him when you're talking with him. And they go,
Yeah.
never experienced. He probably is the consummate user of EQ. Just
Yes.
listening and understanding, and he just is he listens to every word you're saying.
Yeah. He leans in. He
Yes.
leans into your conversation, which is phenomenal. And giving yourself that moment to process the emotions logically instead of reacting impulsively, forget it. That is the best thing you can absolutely do. So in closing, one of the small step listeners can take today is, to improve their emotional intelligence. That you have to think to yourself, what am I going to do today?
Yeah.
What am I going to do today? Am I going to lean in and really listen? Am I going to take self-reflection? What is it that I'm going to do?
Yeah. It's like ask yourself, how can EQ be the ultimate advantage in my business?
Hmm.
What can I do differently today?
Yeah. And the final challenge is identify one situation this week where you intentionally apply EQ so that you can kind of follow the situation through to see how things are reacting. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised for sure.
Great. So, to our audience, let's keep the podcast momentum going. Share this episode on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Threads, and Blue Sky with the hashtag The Best Small Business Show. Spread the word and keep our community growing by subscribing to our show.
And are you ready to take your career and business to the next level? Reach out to Rich G at richg.com for top tier executive and business coaching that drives results.
And for all things brand marketing and website design, contact my podcast partner, BJ Flagg, at newrenew.com and make your marketing remarkable.
And we cannot end this podcast without a big shout out to our editor, our producer, and our big EQ guy, Richard Scalzo, for making us sound so professional in every episode. Folks, have an unbelievable week. Crush those goals, read those books, and we'll catch you at the next episode.